StarCraft 2's most interesting rivalry continues yet again. It's time for a Protoss versus Terran, a best-of-5 finals, where in the top left corner, playing with the red Protoss pieces, we have none other than Clem. And even though he's a previous Terran world champion, he has been destroying his opponent, who's also a previous world champion. Playing with the blue Terran pieces, we have none other than Byun. But he's been destroying Byun with Protoss. The record is something like 28-3 over the last 10 months or so, in 2025 so far, which is pretty ridiculous. Clem's Protoss really is amongst the very best. Now, this particular best of 5 is the grand finals of the Wardy TV Monday Weekly, which was played last Friday. Yeah, I don't make the rules, man. Apparently we did the weekly Monday tournament on Friday. I don't know. I don't get it either. I also haven't bothered to ask, but these games, they were played on Friday. And I'm guessing there was probably some sort of conflict, because even though this game is, well, StarCraft 2 itself is like 15 years old at this point in time, there's still tons of tournaments happening. And sometimes there is a little bit of a clash. All right, well, for the time being, Byun is sort of hiding, you know, a cheeky little barracks inside of the main base. I mean, hiding in the sense that it's not on top of the high ground, which is where it normally would go. You could run into some issues if Clem decided to skip out on the probe scout. Not an issue, though, in this particular instance. Clem really has been playing. Oh, cat aggro. Really? This is the moment you want to sit in my lap? Okay. Can I cast StarCraft with a... Okay, yeah, no, let's go get back to the game. Clem, he has been insanely good with Protoss lately. To the point where, honestly, since he's been playing more Protoss than he has been playing Terran in tournaments, maybe we should consider him a Protoss main rather than a Terran main. That's Toby, by the way. Toby has not really been hanging out much in my room. Usually, we have two cats. Usually, as soon as I start yapping into a microphone, the cats are like, nope, nope, that's my cue. I am leaving. But because this is also the room where, well, the computer is running, we obviously have I have a little bit of, some electronics in this room. Don't look at my electricity bill. This is also the warmest room in the house, usually. So I'm guessing that's why they do enjoy hanging out here during the day. But then as soon as I start yapping, they want to fly their command centers to the corner of the map and, leave. All right, it's going to be a Stargate opener right here for Clem. That's a little bit odd. This is the one criticism that I have had of Clem's Protoss, and that is the fact that, well, most of the time he just goes for the same build over and over and over again. And there's different variations on the theme. He does occasionally go for, well, I don't know, like for example, adept pushes, or the follow-up after Blink Stalkers is different, but he rarely opens up with Phoenixes. Okay. Honestly, across the board, this is a build that has really lost popularity. I'm curious to see what sort of variation he's going to play. So this is not a build that necessarily got nerfed, it's just that other strategies were deemed better. Maybe this map, Ruby Rock, which is of course one of the finalists of the TOMC, maybe it's just a really good map for it? I'm not entirely sure. But usually what you do is you go Phoenixes into Colossi, or you go Phoenixes into charge lots. Those are the two common choices. I wonder if maybe now, with the new version of Storm, we do have a variation. Either way, we're gonna have to reveal those units right now, though, because I don't believe that the mineral line can survive. The zoning has been excellent. Well, that was actually far less problematic than I thought it was going to be. Only a single probe died. That looked really sketchy for just a moment. Maybe Byun, if he would have committed, could have actually done a little bit more damage, but he decided that he wanted to eat the cake. He wanted to have everything. It's going to be a Twilight Council right now on the back of this. So I'm assuming it's Phoenixes now into charge lots. But I mean, there is a chance that maybe there's an option to go into like a really quick Storm on the back of this. I'm not exactly sure. The advantage of opening up Phoenixes for Protoss, there's a few. If you micro really well, and that is the big if you're a ladder hero in particular, but if you micro really well, you can't really take damage from anything. Now, Byun is really good at the game, and he still has managed to sneak out a medevac just like that. But usually, at least in theory, medevac drops like the one that we are seeing right now are mostly irrelevant. There is still one Widowmine, by the way, that can just burrow. Oh no, Hellions also do come in. He was faking that one for a very long time. Even Clem thought it had already fired. That was the strangest little interaction there, because that mine was unburrowed for a good 10 seconds or so. He faked, I guess, that he had already used it up and couldn't quite pick it up in the medevac in time. A little bit odd. Yeah, look at this. So we are going straight Templar Archives. So it's charge slots, but then straight into a Templar Archives. And obviously this has been changed quite a bit with the new patch. Storm has been an absolute thorn in the sides of Terrans lately. So we're going Phoenixes, quick charge slots, and then straight into High Templar. Okay. Command Center, in the meantime, finishing over at the third base. Byun bravely building it on location. He knew that those Phoenixes would likely be preoccupied with defense, but of course, as soon as those Phoenixes roam the map, they could very easily lift up an SCV that's building a Command Center. There's the Storm coming. Engineering base are already finishing up here as well for Byun, and well, he is likely going to be firing up. There it is, the +1/+1 upgrades for the infantry units. Right, I was listing advantages for Phoenix Opener. So, first and foremost, if you micro it really well, you can, well, most of the time, prevent pretty much all worker damage. In this particular instance, we did see 9 probes going down, but it wasn't free for the Terran by any stretch of the imagination. One really large advantage, though, of Phoenix builds is that usually, with these units, even though they fall off the longer that the game goes on, they usually force the game to go longer. So, if you want to go for some sort of early game aggression as Terran, Phoenixes are just really, really good in low eco, in low army situations. So you're almost forcing the Terran here to build up their economy, which of course means that the game is going to be running a little bit longer, and therefore, well, Protoss gets to do their Storm and their mid-game and all the stuff that a lot of players are hating at this point in time. So I was wondering already if maybe Phoenixes would be making a return in the meta yet again, because all Protoss is really looking to do in the current meta, at least that's what the new patch seems to imply, is just get to the state where they are comfortable with a decent economy and comfortable with Psionic Storm done. And that's, well, already something that those Phoenixes here have achieved. Ghost Academy has now been forced out right here by Byun. So Byun has decided to go into those ghosts relatively early. You need, of course, the third base up and running, but is he going to move out with Stimpack, combat shields, and +1 infantry attacks all finishing up right around the same time? It's a big power spike, but look, instead, what do we have right over here? We've got him sitting inside of a bunker. He's making defensive structures in a situation where normally Terran would be ready to go for a big push. He knows that there's likely going to be Colossi or, I guess, Storm out. Now, in this instance, we don't have any Colossi, but we do have these bad boys. They're levitating off the ground. Nobody even knows why they have feet. They're basically like Reapers, minus the jetpack. They just have a cool cape that does the same thing. And they have a slightly better skill, just a little bit, than a Reaper does. Now, I'm inclined to say that attacking right now is a bad move for Protoss, because Terran just hit a massive power spike. 1/1 upgrades, combat shields, and Storm, or Stimpack rather, not to be underestimated. But Clem is still going to test the waters. Widowmine does get a decent hit off right over here. He wants to lift off the siege tanks. Oh, the Storms are still going to go down though, but this is messy. Yeah, I don't really love this. But because the Storm lasts so long, it's so difficult for Terran to actually chase. Look, normally, these units would have a very hard time escaping by pretty much only themselves. But Byun did not quite feel like he could actually hunt them down. I wonder, though, if he would have loaded up the Marines and the Marauders into a medevac and then boosted after it. I mean, maybe you get feedback, maybe you get the medevac stormed. It's a dangerous play, but likewise, I also think it's quite dangerous to be wandering the map with like 7 High Templar. They're so insanely expensive. Prism, in the meantime, got shut down over here in the bottom left-hand corner of Byun's main. He He fired up 2-2. Nice and quickly. Even going for the correct of the 2 upgrade first. That's nice. Second starport coming up too. Colossus production right now has begun. 5th Nexus is starting up as well. Double upgrades here as well now for the Protoss. I think this is totally comfortable right now for Clem. The supply count is a little bit deceptive. But Terrans don't really feel like they can actually push out onto the map very often. Good defense though, so far here by Byun, right? Byun's general game plan is to stay alive. And I'm assuming, now with barracks 6, 7, and 8 finishing up, that we are going to be going into an attack here in a moment. And maybe we're going to see some Liberator production too. I wouldn't mind it. So we're currently up to, 4 Vikings only. Colossus production is here. You probably need at least like 8 of those bad boys. But once you get a decent group of the units out, maybe he wants to get even more because the Phoenixes are here too to soak some damage. Maybe once he gets like 12 of those, he can start thinking about Liberators. And Liberators, of course, are quite good when it comes to fighting all of these ground-based Protoss units. But so far, yep, the Phoenix opener has done its job. Clem is really just chilling, though. Very little urgency in his play. Protoss, of course, has a lot of variety these days in the mid-game. Look at him, he's already going +1 air. He wants to go Skytoss. Yeah, look at that. Fleet Beacon coming up. Second Stargate too, I suppose. This is something we rarely see. There it is. This used to be very common. But then Protoss players thought, nah, actually, I prefer having good old Stalkers as my anti-air instead. But he's probably going to go into Tempest now. Maybe it's because he started off with a Stargate already, so it's a bit of a quicker transition. But he's also going to try and see if he can force the fight. Phoenixes are going to get killed, but that's okay. They were mostly just dead weight. Byun forced to micro backwards. Using the Stalkers right here is Clem to blink after whatever he can. Storms to force a bit of a disengage between these units. That's opened up some supply right now for the Protoss. I thought it was going to start up some Tempests. Maybe a Mama ship even. Nah, probably no Mother ship, but that'd be fun. I highly doubt it. Vikings are just going to counter that pretty hard. But he did get rid of the useless Phoenixes now. He's going to be able to replace them with better and bigger units if he wants to. There it is. Tempest, indeed, does begin. All right. 4 command centers in the meantime on the production tab right now for Byun. Byun's also going into the fusion core, so I'm assuming we will be seeing the range libs here in just a moment. He'll probably also get the medevac energy regen improvement. I wouldn't be surprised in a moment if we're going to be seeing the building armor, the high-sec auto-tracking, and all the rest of it here as well for the Terran, although not necessarily a very high priority, but this is where the game is headed. Both players are trying to see if they can play a big macro game. Now, Byun wants to deny this base over here on the low ground. Plenty of Protoss units, though, are entering this part of Ruby Rock. There's also a High Templar here joining in the run-by squad in the bottom left. Probably looking for a good opportunity instead. +2 air weapons already coming. Tempest production now is indeed in full swing. There's the energy regen for the medevacs. And yeah, both players are trying to tech up to the absolute maximum level. As a Terran, what you can also still add in the mix at this point in time would be nukes. I wouldn't mind it. Usually that's what... Oh, yeah, instead we're going to add on a whole load more starports. Usually that's sort of where the Terran player maxes out. But this is very much so unexplored territory on the new patch. Admittedly, not a ton has changed for this sort of exchange in the late game. But it is something that we don't see all too often anymore. This is going to be big eco. We're already at 5 orbital commands. We'll probably go up to like 10 or so if he has the chance. Viking numbers, by the way, are through the roof. You do have to be very cautious here as a Terran that you don't get stormed. Like, yeah, these units can clump up together, which is awesome. You can use them to, well, pinpoint the exact unit you want to kill. But if you're not careful, Storm is going to absolutely murder you. And as the Terran just now finished up additional starports, we're also having additional Stargates added into the mix. Tactical nuke indeed is coming up. Second armory for double upgrades. Bunch of stalkers right now at the front. Just hitting whatever they can, going after that bunker that was, well, produced at like minute 7 or so. Not really that important anymore. Clem just picking off whatever he can. There's additional orbital commence finishing up right now in the main base. Indeed, building armor, high-sec auto tracking. We're getting everything. The players have now upgraded to full luxury. I don't know who wins this in the current patch. I have no idea. I'm inclined to believe it's better for Protoss, but that's just because I believe the current patch is better for Protoss across the board. And Clem is playing this so confidently, whereas I feel like Byun has been a bit of a punching bag so far. But he is now launching a tactical nuke on over in this direction. Careful, careful, careful! He did not see! Massive nuke connects with the Protoss army. And that may be exactly what Byun is looking for. We rarely see that as well at this level of StarCraft, but I guess that spot, especially with the red hue, the red center right here on Ruby Rock, it may have been difficult to see. Still some storms remaining here for this Protoss player, and obviously he's still fighting with the static defense on that Nexus helping him out. Liberator production is going to continue. +3 air weapons is going to be done in a moment, and because of the success of the first tactical nuke, we're adding a second one in the mix as well. Protoss obviously reinforced this really rapidly. The real advantage right now, though, from that nuke is displayed in the supply count. The bank of Protoss is completely depleted, and he is not very able to max out yet again. Now, obviously, with 87 workers, you can get there pretty rapidly. But Clem was banking on having, well, a bit of a bank. Byun is going to continue the harassment. The EMPs here have been really good. Another massive EMP there. There's a few High Templar in the back that still have storm energy. The Tempest in the meantime, though, are trying their absolute best. Liberator slowly moving in range as well. Clem really does not want to give up on this position. He knows if he's going to lose the fight with all of this static defense present, he's likely going to lose the game. So he needs to keep on holding this position, and those storms are juicy. New Liberators, though, are showing up, and they are going to be dishing out a lot of damage. All of the Protoss units, though, are now out of shields, and soon out of energy as well. Still, the Tempest production is quite high, and with this many Tempests, there's 6 of them in total on the battlefield. You can one-shot any Terran unit that you point your guns to, and obviously they can fire at a ridiculous range. They can actually fire further than they can see. He's lacking a little bit of vision here at the front. No oracles to use their revelation ability, no, well, observers that can easily get within vision. Using the zealots, though, to charge forward and maybe provide some of the vision, maybe exactly what he's looking for. So far, the tug of war here has been excellent. Both players did add additional workers in the mix as well. Clem actually going up to like 92 right now, which sounds a little bit much. Another storm does not achieve too much damage. Looks like we have taken just a moment to breathe. Let the shields regen. Let the HP regen as well on those Medivacs. How about a siege tank? The Tempest, I guess, would make short work of it. And now the Vikings are doing a pretty darn good job as well at exactly that. Now we're running through the storm. Byun has decided that he has weathered it enough. And he is going to pull the trigger as he chases that Protoss army all the way back to another expansion. Maybe keep our, well, heads on the original task, though. The goal was to try and kill that Nexus over here. And I think we can easily get that job done right now. Yeah, back up for just a moment. He will find that there is another Nexus right over here. That command center is going to get blocked, as the SCV likes to say. You can't, it's blocked. Still, though, I think Byun might just be able to parade push his way to a victory. Blocked expansions or not. Those nukes connecting, yep, it certainly helped. GG. That was a beautiful game. Incredibly well done right there by Byun. Obviously, he had a tactical nuke connect, right? But that's because of all of the chaos that he created. And ultimately, I think he would have been able to get the job done without the tactical nuke as well, although it would have been certainly a little bit more difficult to break that position. Now, next up, we find ourselves on the map Torches. I tried figuring out what the current map pool is for this tournament, because apparently we are mixing old with the new. Maybe we're just using all of the TLMC finalists, and then on top of that, all 9 maps as well from the current map pool? I'm not exactly sure, but I'm here for it. Honestly, the more games of StarCraft I cast, the more I like map variety. Now, I understand that not everybody watches a half dozen games of StarCraft every day. But what do you think, actually? Do you think there should be more or less maps in the StarCraft 2 map pools? Because oh, dude, he made a mistake. That was an engineering bay. That's like making an Evo chamber play. Oh, no. That's like making an Evo chamber rather than a spawning pool. There's no way. Byun just made a very basic error. It slows everything down a ton. Now, there is a chance that Clem is going to be horribly confused. I do quite like the moment, though, or the movement here by the Terran. So he mined out, I think, 2 of the skinny mineral fields here, and positioned that barracks in such a way that the scouting worker wouldn't see it. Yeah, Clem is not actually going to double check that spot, because he knows that normally when you go into the main... it was so clever. It was actually such a smart move right here from the Terran, until he accidentally made an engineering bay. Look, Clem is not sure what he is going up against at all. Alright, do we make any adjustments because of it, Clem? Well, we didn't go for a blind zealot or anything along those lines. Maybe we'll use an extra chrono just to get some extra units out just in case. But he makes the assumption, obviously Byun certainly is very well known, right, for, well, having barracks out on the map. He's making the assumption that maybe it could be proxied right now. There's a safety shield battery coming up as well. Good mind game here by Byun. If it wasn't for the fact that everything fell apart because of his own mistakes. Okay. We have ourselves a factory, a command center, and everything else inside of the main base too. The positioning here on everything is a little bit messy. Normally the barracks, the factory, and the starport are close together so they can mix and match add-ons. Not going to be the case this time around, although we do have the tech lab here produced on the factory, and we'll likely see it switched over here to the starport in a moment. I would assume that's going to be for good old Banshees. Clem, not entirely sure what he's playing against. Yeah, still keeping these units at home for safety. But at this point, he's probably started to realize that everything is fine? He's going to see that there is a safety bunker. Oh no, he doesn't even see that. He's very confused. Maybe he assumes that the gold base now has been taken over here. But maybe you check this location to see if the mineral fields are mined out. He sees that there's only a couple mined out. Yeah, you can't fit through that. It's such an awkward game right now here for Clem. It's so funny because you, at some point, right, when you play enough StarCraft, you have certain assumptions of your opponents too. And one of the assumptions is that your opponent wouldn't be unnecessarily 30 seconds behind for no apparent reason at all by minute 4. It just doesn't really make sense at a higher level in StarCraft 2. Like above Gold League or so, you can make the assumption your opponent knows not to make an engineering bay at minute 2, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, yeah, Clem is trying to piece a puzzle together that has become awfully complex because of Byun's own misplays. Now, we're also following this up with a rather unorthodox play. Byun is going now into the good old speed Banshees. This is an upgrade that did get buffed. It's now a little bit quicker to produce. We've seen a lot of Terran players experiment with it and get the Hyperflight rotors research rather than the cloaking, which I quite like. Actually, I'm pretty sure that at this point, Hyperflight rotors is actually superior over cloak, although we still see about a 50-50 split between the two. Especially against Zerg. I think Hyperflight Rotors is better. Anyway. There's going to be a bunch of Stalkers at the front. And because of all of these weird decisions early on, it's 4 gates and Stalkers. The norm is to go for 3 these days, but Clem has gotten an additional 1, and you know what? This is a really nice build to go for if you believe that your opponent has played a bit of a wonky early game. It's great defensively too if you believe you're gonna get all-in, but of course you can turn this into an all-in of your own. There will be a 3rd Nexus, so Clem is not just going to double down, and maybe the Banshees can actually kill it. They want to go for the actual meat and potatoes of the Protoss economy. In the meantime, though, is there enough right now for the Terran to defend? Siege tanks are already gone. The pickup micro here has been pretty darn good. It's a lot of units, though, scrambling for safety, and now there will be chaos as well inside of the main base. Stalkers are having a bit of a tough time. It looks like we're just going to recall and settle for the kills on the Banshees. Fair enough. Messy game. Both players have taken a bunch of damage. Yeah, I guess everything's relatively even here, but you know what? We can go into a Templar Archives. We can get Storm going. There's going to be a 3rd Nexus done very, very soon. And usually this is exactly what Terran players are trying to avoid. They don't want to play against this. Well, I think that ship has sailed ever since we made an NG Bay. Maybe Byun just has a passion for engineering. I get it. I feel like half of the fans of StarCraft have a passion. Well, maybe more than half, to be honest. I feel like about half of the StarCraft fans are engineers. And the other half, at the very least, have a passion for engineering. So he just really wanted to get the engineering bay going fast. You know, somebody pointed out to me about a half year ago that they believe that the armory and the engineering bay are reversed. That the armory probably should be the structure that provides infantry upgrades, and that the engineering bay should be the thing that provides mech upgrades. And my life has never been quite the same ever since. Because yeah, they're right. They're absolutely correct. Why would the I guess, but anyway. Maybe they knew it for StarCraft 2, but then with Brood War, I guess, in StarCraft 1, they just kind of had that as a remnant, and this is how we're running the game now. At this point, it is canon. Well, you know what else is canon? Byun, who is not able to get a 3rd Nexus and a 3rd Command Center up and running. So instead, we're pulling the boys. Now the problem is Storm is done. Believe it or not, SCVs are not very tanky when they're standing in stormy weather. The Protoss army, though, kind of mispositioned. He's going to be able to get him over here right now and reveals, okay, some of the High Templar. I believe one of them just ended up going down. No, not quite. Little plot hole over here just did some damage. Very ambitious little SCV here. Wants to snoop a few minerals. Not going to happen. Oof. Ooh, that's juicy. Yeah, just a few more of those, please. No EMPs, of course, with an economy like this. Honestly, I think you stormed the tanks. Ooh. Ugh. That was not what Clem was hoping for at all. Nice retargeting, I believe, with Byun's siege tanks. Still, though, a lot of SCVs have gone down, and Clem did save the workers. There's already a new Nexus here that was supposed to be the 4th, but instead it gets to be the 3rd, and I guess now Byun is going to have to continue to push into the natural expansion as well. He was already planning on having this done. Ooh, Medevac drop into the main base is kind of a juicy play, but also a dangerous one. Now the question is very much so, when do you commit? Well, with the High Templar, inside of a prism, life really does become way easier. Because now at the very least he can bring the High Templar within range guaranteed. High Templar are still inside of the prism. They're looking for the perfect spot. SCVs are still dying. And despite the fact that Clem did not quite have a good defense over at his previous start, I think this is fine. Oh, well, I say that. Prism goes down? Nah, it's not enough. It's not enough, Terran. GG. Alrighty. Next up, Persephone. Apparently, we are switching gear yet again. Honestly, an unlucky game for Byun previously. It sounds silly, but I think a lot of the result of that previous game came down to him accidentally making an engineering bay. You just really shoot yourself in the foot if you slow down before, like, minute 2. Anything, like, for example, the 4-gate. And I'm kind of surprised he survived the 4-gate, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But those sort of attacks just become significantly more lethal. Alright, anyways, let's forget about it. We're now on Persephone, and apparently we're gonna go for a good old double Rex cheese. Now, Clem is probe scouting. So that's nice. At the very least, he will see that yet again, something is gonna be a little bit odd on the other side of the map. I still don't know if Clem actually managed to put 1-on-1 together from the previous game. I don't think so, unless he went into the replay really quickly in between the matches. Which sometimes does happen. Okay. Are we gonna go Marauders? Yeah, Marauders makes the most sense. Probe is going to scout as well on his side of the map, and I think Clem now noticed the angle. I think he already knows. Yeah, he must have noticed the angle. And that is... Oh! Really? Wait, Byun is being very indecisive. He decided to cancel the tech lab and go into Reapers instead. Maybe it's not indecisive, maybe it's because he's been spotted. And he decides to go into the good old Reapers now instead, because he's already given up on the chances that the Marauders would really have. Not really ideal here, at all, for the Terran. Zealot is going to be here mostly just to buy some time for the Stalkers to come out. He really wants to build a Nexus. Zealot is likely going to fall at some point, but it's still a really good tanking unit. Yep. And Clem is playing this cleanly. Clem is honestly such a well-rounded Protoss player these days. A year or so ago, I would criticize him quite a bit. Just by mostly being predictable. Like, he was very good at specific strats, but then he would play the same strat over and over and over again. But that's really not the case anymore. He is dealing with this early game pressure about as good as you could. Great interpretation of what he has actually seen. And yeah, honestly, I think if I were to label only his Protoss versus Terran right now, I would probably consider Clem a top 3 Protoss. Is that cursed? Kind of. But in my mind, it's all very close, right? In my mind, top 4 for sure. I think Classic, Max Specs, Hero, and then Clem. As weird as that is to say out loud, I think those are probably the world's best PvT players right now. Blink Stalkers, though, will always remain the comfort zone, right? This is like the warm blanket. It's autumn time over here in the Netherlands. Everybody's getting their woolly sweaters out again, you know? Like, this is the woolen sweater right here of Protoss. Blink Stalkers. It is not bad whatsoever. Obviously, it rarely wins the game straight up. I don't know if this is going to be another one of those 4-gate scenarios. At this point in time, he's only got 2. 2 into a third is also very valuable, actually, especially when Terran doesn't have the most successful start. Either way, Byun is already playing this very greedily himself now, too. I quite like it. So he's following up the barracks with more barracks. Delaying the starport tremendously, but getting a ton of eco going because of it. Problem is, though, if Terran just goes, or sorry, if Protoss just goes into big aggression, it would be so difficult to hold. No sentry is really possible when you're dealing with this sort of early game pressure. So because there's no hallucinated Phoenix running around, Byun believes he can get away with all of this. Looks like it will just be 3 gateways and then a 3rd Nexus here for Clem. So let's see. How much damage can he deal? Blink is done. The 4 boys are back inside of their prism. The 4 Stalker hit squad will arrive on the other side of the map. SEAL Team Protoss. And we're gonna start pointing our guns at individual SCVs now. With good clicking. You can blink, you can pick up, you can target fire anything down. And this is so insanely annoying for Terran to deal with. Because there's no starport, there's no cyclone. Oh. Whoa. Well, I guess Byun agrees that this is indeed very annoying to play against. And just like that, we find ourselves already on Pylon. A very quick, a very frustrated... a very quick, a very frustrated GG right there from Byun. He's already laughing again, though. We had a little bit of a worker dance. Wait, what happened? Hold up. What did we do? Okay, pretend nothing happened. And just like that, we find ourselves on Pylon. Byun certainly not enjoying that previous game very much. He knew he didn't have a proper answer against the shenanigans right there inside of the prism. Maybe if he already had a cyclone. Maybe if he already did something else. Life would have been okay. What are we doing, Byun? So he was trying to hide an SCV in the corner of the main base to try and box the probe in. Nice trick, says Clem. This is, by the way, not the Western Z. Usually this is what cartoon characters say when they're sleepy. This is the Korean Z, as in, ha 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 ha, so funny. Although this is only a small funny. This is a lot of funny, this is a small funny. So, yeah, Clem was, at least according to Byun, gonna get boxed into the main base. But it didn't happen. Okay. It'd be kind of insulting to call people Z outside of Korea, I think. I don't know. Do they use Z in other countries as well, just to indicate laughter? Obviously, it's to do as well with the Korean keyboard, right? So a lot of the Korean players will switch on over to a non-Korean layout, so they can actually communicate. Byun's English is actually pretty good. Yeah, despite the frustration, so we see this quite a lot, right? Besides the frustrations, generally the pro gamers get along very well. Like, frustration in game is rarely taken outside of the game. And it makes sense. Everybody knows that they're just trying to win. What is this dancing we're doing over here, man? I guess he's reducing the energy out of the energy... the shield battery over here for just a second. Okay. Yeah, and it seems that when Clem is just a little bit curious about what's going on, right? When he's not 100% convinced that what Terran is doing is normal, this is the safety blankie right over here. We just go back to the good old comfortable blink. You know what? I can't really blame him. It's the one-size-fits-all build for Protoss. Well, it's nice to see him experiment with Phoenix builds as well, and a little bit of variety here. When you're going up against a tricky opponent, like, for example, Byun, who keeps on mixing it up, right? I mean, this is one of Byun's real strengths. Byun never really seems to play the same build twice in a row. A very intelligent tournament player in general. You may find yourself doing the same build over and over and over again. Now, by the way, like I said, I believe currently they are 28-3 in 2025 so far. 28 wins in favor of Clem versus 3 losses. And that's all with Protoss against Terran. We may very well add another one to that score at this rate. I mean, it's 2-1 right now in this best-of-5 finals. Byun has decided to now test the waters with this siege tank push, but with good micro, there's going to be a prism. There's already a backup pylon. Blink is going to be done very, very soon. This is extremely defendable right now here. Already we have Clem going around the side, waiting for a little bit of a hit squad. He's hoping to intercept some of these units, and that's exactly what ends up happening. SEAL Team Stalker back in action yet again. He does get the lock-on top of the Warp Prism, but energy recharge is quite nice. Saves the pylon as well for the time being. Looks like one Stalker has gone down to the Siege Tank. But it's mostly waiting until Clem decides to pull the trigger. He did not go for an Immortal or anything along those lines. He has, however, picked up all the reinforcements, and can Byun really move forward here? That's the question. Oh, he hit a supply block. Ooh, he's hit a rather nasty supply block as well. Not yet starting up a... Oh no, he just finished up something. Okay, I got a little confused there. Oh, of course, right when I look away, that is when Clem decides to commit. Hold up, let me just back this up 1 second. He must have done a supply drop out of the command centers. Because he's at 70 out of 70 here, and he's not making a command center, nor is he making a supply depot. Alright, so this is when Clem decides to pull the trigger indeed. Stalkers around the back, Stalkers around the front. Prism does end up going down. The Marines are just gunning their way to a victory at this point. At least that's what the goal is. But I don't know if the Marine numbers are big enough. And immediately, a probe springs into motion. A third Nexus begins. And the Templar Archives starts up. Now we are gonna need a new Warp Prism. Or as a wise man once called it, a new medevac. We should get it here in just a moment if we really want to dance. He could try and go around the site. A little risky. One Immortal decides to join the fray as well. Or as a wise man once called it, a Marauder. There's the Scythe Storm coming up. Look, after all these years of casting, one day I will get the unit names right. But today is not that day. Ooh. I like how Protoss players, they keep forgetting about the change they've made to the Observer. So when you siege up an Observer now, it does get spotted. It is uncloaked. And we see Protoss players using the ability all the time. And they're like, oh no, wait, I can't do that. And then they unsiege it again immediately afterwards. It's pretty ironic. All right, +1/+1 coming up here for the Terrans. Stimpak, combat shields, and all the rest of it. Third command center is also building inside of the main base. So Byun is trying to make a transition to something a little bit better. Immortal, by the way, has decided to just walk with its chubby little legs all the way back home. Now we've got ourselves the High Templar out yet again. So what do you do here as a Terran in this situation? What's your go-to? Can you really go for a move out? I feel like every time we see Terrans try a move out at this stage, because it feels counterproductive, right? I mean, you set up this this timing attack with +1/+1 Stimpak and combat shields. You set it up. And then you don't attack. And it's because time and time again, when we see the Terrans go for that move out, they just get smacked by Storm. A lot of it has to do with the map design as well, right? I mean, this is about a 1 Storm white ramp. This one is about a 2 white Storm ramp. So Prism is going to try and get into the main base here. A little bit brave. Stalker's trying to see if maybe they can potentially intercept it. But look, despite the fact that Terran just hit a big power spike, it's actually the Protoss now that springs into motion and is going to test the waters for just a moment. Fourth Nexus is probably going to start up here as well in the meantime. We have the resources for it. He's busy though. There's 2 Stalkers, 1 Zealot, and 1 High Templar inside of the Warp Prism. Zealot is going to be here mostly for scouting purposes. Clem waiting until it's the perfect opportunity to strike, which may very well be, right about right now. I think Byun agrees and realizes, okay, I'm actually better off just backing out of this. Observer moves in. Scouts that there's not a whole lot going on here just yet. Observer, though, gets spotted immediately by Byun, who really has a great vision for that sort of thing. By the way, how many of these supply depots have been upgraded at this point? I feel like there's been at least 3 in total so far this game, which is very pricey. Every single one of those supply depot drops could have been a mule. And mules mine way more resources than making an actual supply depot costs. Now we're playing effectively 2-base Ghost though, which is always expensive. Fourth Next is about halfway done already. Clem is just sitting outside of his opponent's third base, waiting until Byun gets in position to fight. It's a lot of zealots, by the way. Maybe a few too many zealots. Well, here we go. This is apparently when Clem decides to pull the trigger. First storm goes down, hurts the zealots about as much as they hurt the bio units. But he's already achieved what he came for. The Terran player has decided to back up. EMP misses. I think one of the High Templar. Now that was a solid EMP. One of the High Templar previously got caught, but that one caught every single one of them. But does it even matter? Clem has had the superior economy for such a long time already. He's building a fourth Nexus on the back of his 2. But he is absolutely destroying the Terran's army with or without Storm. Now imagine if those High Templar just now did not get EMP'd. Imagine this fight. It would have been a landslide victory. I still believe this is a victory, to be honest, for Protoss, just straight up. I don't think that Byun can really stop the flood of Protoss units at this point in the game. Yeah, and I think that's gonna be another win. That will be another win for Clem that goes onto the permanent record. It's one of the strangest rivalries in 2025, but Byun just seemingly cannot score a win against Clem's Protoss. And honestly, looking at these games, I'm starting to understand why. Clem's Protoss is just ridiculous now.